So today, we're going to dive into the mind behind Claude Code, which is one of the most transformative AI tools out there for developers. We're going to look at its creator, Boris Cherny, and explore the pretty radical principles you need to build a product that literally reinvents itself every few months. Okay, let's get into it.
And let's just start with this quote because it perfectly captures what we're talking about. I mean, just think about that for a second. Imagine building something where the entire code base is basically disposable. It has a shelf life of just a few months. That's the new reality we're living in.
And that really gets to the core question here, right? What kind of mindset, what kind of rules do you have to follow to not just survive, but actually thrive when the ground is constantly shifting underneath you? Let's find out.
You know, the story of Claude Code doesn't start with some big master plan or grand vision. Nope. Like so many amazing inventions, it was kind of an accident.
That's right. The powerful tool that so many developers are completely hooked on today, it started as a quick and dirty hack. Boris just built a simple chat app right in his terminal because, honestly, it was the fastest way to start playing with the API without needing to build a whole user interface.
But this is where everything changed. This was the aha moment. Just on a whim, Boris asked it a super simple question, and the model's response? It wrote its own script to go find the answer. That was the revelation. It wasn't just a text generator, it was an agent that wanted to do things in the real world.
And it wasn't just Boris who felt that shift. The tool spread like wildfire inside Anthropic. The adoption was so fast, so steep, that the CEO actually thought they were forcing engineers to use it. But they weren't. It was just that good, even in its most basic, earliest form.
So this explosive, kind of accidental growth, it leads us to the first core philosophy that guides how they build Claude Code. And it's a really counterintuitive way of thinking about how to build products now, in the age of AI.
Okay, so here's the crucial trade-off. You can build all this complicated code around the model, let's call it scaffolding, to get maybe a small 10% boost today. Or you can bet on the model that's going to exist in 6 months. The advice? Always bet on the model. Why? Because your product literally gets better for free every single time the model gets an update.
The next big idea isn't about gazing into a crystal ball and predicting the future. It's actually the opposite. It's about looking really closely at what your users are already desperately trying to do.
And this is what they call latent demand. You can think of it like a hidden gold mine. It's not about giving people some brand new thing to do. No, it's about seeing the hoops they're already jumping through, the crazy workarounds they've invented, and just building them a ladder. You just make their existing struggle easier. In plan mode is the absolute perfect example of this in action. Boris just noticed users were trying to get Claude to outline a plan before it started spitting out code. That was the latent demand right there. So the solution? It wasn't some huge, complex feature. It was a single sentence added to the prompt on a Sunday night. That's it. 30 minutes and a game-changing feature was born.
Okay, so all of this really connects back to this next idea. If you're building for the future, and you know the models are just getting exponentially better, what does that actually mean for the code you're writing right now, today?
The team is basically guided by this famous essay called The Bitter Lesson. They literally have a framed copy of it hanging on their wall. And the core takeaway is incredibly simple. General purpose compute, like what you get from a huge AI model, will always win out over handcrafted, specialized features in the long run. So what that really means is that every clever feature you build, all that scaffolding, it's all temporary. It's destined to become tech debt. Think of the model like a rising tide. It's just going to keep getting higher and higher, and eventually all that clever code you wrote is going to be completely underwater. The key is to just accept it, to embrace that impermanence.
So, if all the code is temporary, and the model is just on this unstoppable upward curve, where in the world is all this heading? Well, Boris Cherny has some pretty bold predictions about what happens next.
But first, let's just ground this in reality for a second. Check this out. Since Claude Code was launched inside Anthropic, productivity per engineer has gone up by a staggering 150%. To put that in perspective, a 2% gain used to be a massive win that would take hundreds of people a whole year to achieve. We are in a totally different world now.
So here's the prediction. Coding, as in the manual task of typing out lines of code, is going to be a generally solved problem. Boris himself says he's written 100% of his code through Claude since their Opus 4.5 model. The job title software engineer is probably going to fade away. It'll be replaced by the hyper-generalist or the builder. And it's not just going to be for engineers. Everyone, product managers, designers, people in finance, they're all going to be able to build things.
You know, there's a really great parallel for this in history. TypeScript. TypeScript won because it built a system for how developers actually write JavaScript. It didn't try to force some academically pure idea on them. It met them where they were. And Claude Code is doing the exact same thing, but for the entire process of building software. It's all about utility and practicality.
And that leaves us with one final and kind of mind-blowing thought. Boris is already at a point where he writes zero code by hand. A lot of us are going to be there really, really soon. So when the how of building something becomes trivial, the only question that matters anymore is what. If AI can write 100% of the code for you, what will you build?